Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's show with SportsbookReview.com. I'm your host, Lee Martin, here to talk some UFC 260. We got Stipe versus Francis Ngannou, and I feel like I've been waiting for this for a long time. But despite the fact that we have some good cards, or good fights, this card is a mess. But here to break down the entire card for us, we have SBR's UFC expert, David Manyun, and MMA. Oh my gosh, I cannot talk today. MMA Mania's lead host, Matt Ryan. That is like a little tongue twister, MMA Mania. But before we get into all the card breakdowns and stuff like that, just go ahead real quick, give this video a like, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss a show. Now, let's get to it. I hope you guys are having a wonderful Wednesday. Before we get into our UFC 260 breakdown, I just want to recap what happened this past weekend with Derek Brunson and Kevin Holland. And let me tell you, if you read my recap article, you would know that I was frustrated, but also entertained, because I felt like if Kevin Holland just focused on the fight a little bit, he might have done a little bit better. But besides that, Dave, I'll start with you. I just want to hear how your Saturday went.
Well, if you tuned into last week, you will already know how I feel about last week's card because Kevin Holland, he got beat up and he got beat up bad. And, we know he's a talker. He's got a bit of a fiery tongue. But continuing that whilst you're losing rather than focusing on what's in front of you and actually attempting to change the course of the fight, I can't respect that. But I took a live play on Max Griffin at plus money, so that did keep me above float a little bit. And then obviously the other one that hurt me a little bit was the boys, the married couple. It didn't go too well for them on their debut together on a card. Montserrat Ruiz, she really likes that headlock takedown, right? And she's really good at it. And it kind of reminds me of Ronda back in the day when she would just get them girls in that armbar. And, if you're really good at something, why not do it if it's going to win your fights? I can't even hate on the girl. She was a monster. Highlight of that card for me, there was probably Adrian Yanez. His striking skill is something else. And this kid, we're going to see this kid in the top 10 bantamweights. I truly believe that. I think he's going to start knocking some heads this year. But 260, it's a big one, so let's get busy.
Montserrat Ruiz is a little firecracker. I love her. I think I've become a fan because of this past fight. But how about you, Matt? How was your fight night on Saturday?
To quote the late 20th century poet N***, buys, buy. Yeesh. Not a good night for the Buys family, especially after you say you're going to follow someone home and commit an act of assault upon them just because you got jabroned out. It's okay.
Yeah.
I love the passion, but let's tone it back to like maybe a 5 instead of a 6,327. Mm-hmm. You lost, you take the L. It's like when I lose in Mario Kart. Of course I want to throw the remote across the room and blame the blue shells. But I lost. I failed. I'm going to grumble, I'm going to have a drink, and I'm going to take a shower because that's how it is when you punch people in the face for a living. And now we have a card that seems to have been made up by someone putting these fights together by a hat or people who just hate Tyron Woodley. I don't know, but we'll figure that out now.
But just to go back to the Cheyenne Base fight, she was salty because Montserrat Ruiz apparently spat in her face. But if we look at the video, I don't see anything leaving her mouth. And even Ruiz said it was just the momentum that she was salty about. So whatever, girl drama. It's okay. That's over. But now we have UFC 260, and this is going to be it will be a great event. It definitely will be a great event, but we have to deal with all the card changes and this and that. So if there are any changes to the card again, and we have not covered it in this main card breakdown, just stay tuned to the guys' social media pages and also SBR's UFC Picks page because we have a bunch of articles on all the fights. Just stay tuned to all of our content because it'll all be there for you guys. But let's just start our main card breakdown. And if you guys do have any questions, just write them down in the chat and we'll do our best to answer them at the end of our breakdown. So let's start with the first fight. We have lightweight Jamie Mullarkey versus Khama Worthy. I'm Khama Worthy via Bet Online. Khama Worthy is minus 122. Yes, 122 and Mullarkey is plus 102. Dave, I'll begin with you for your breakdown and pick for this fight.
Yeah, we're starting it's not. We can't call this a main card fight, but with all the switches and the changes, we lost the title fight. It's been a bit of a rough one. They're doing the best they can with what's on the card. And to be fair, when you look at Khama's fights, he does always put on an entertaining fight. But he's fighting a guy in Jamie Mullarkey, the Australian, 12-4-0, 26 years old, trains at Central Coast MMA. And he's trained actually by a fellow Brit of mine, Ross Pearson, who's actually been coaching Mullarkey for the past 4 or 5 years. Now, Mullarkey hasn't had the most ideal beginning to his UFC tenure, that's for sure. But he does have a mullet that Theo Von would be proud of. I'll give him that. Now, he debuted against the elite level striking of welterweight Brad Riddle, which was a real rough outing. And then to drop the level of competition against Farazim and lose back-to-back unanimous decisions, as I said, it's not the most ideal start to your UFC career. And what does he like to do? He loves a takedown. He loves the underhooks. He could not utilize this game plan against the kickboxer in Riddell. But saying that, during the Riddell scrap, Mullarkey, he was holding his own, even in the stand-up. Now, he caught a kick in the second round that gifted him a takedown he wanted from side control. He lost position quick, ended up on his back. And then in round 3, just go watch that round. Some awesome work in all areas of the fight game from both men. Mouthpieces flying out, submissions locked in. It was an absolute brawl in that 3rd round between 2 fatigued fighters. Riddell probably 20 or 30 seconds away from finishing the fight. And to be honest, the ref could have stopped it, but he didn't. And then Mullarkey faced Farazim and stepped up, and a lot of people had faith in him claiming the W. He was the -130 favourite against a 20-year-old Frenchman, but Zaim, suffered from a takedown early on, and then his sweeps and his scrambles on the ground just seemed effortless, and nobody really knew Zaim had that in his game at all. And for me, it just seems like Mullarkey, he's good at getting the fight down, but he struggles to do anything with it. And now he's going to face a guy in Khama Worthy who has been riding high, and he got into the UFC just by chance. This guy is consistently looking for combinations, even in his counter striking. We've learned that right hand, them right hand counters, they are dangerous, and he's got a patience to his game, and I think that's been key in him gaining multiple finishes inside the distance. If he took on his UFC debut as a huge underdog and a last-minute replacement, and you could say he just entered the UFC, it was just through sheer luck of the draw, because he was a last-minute replacement, and he finished Devontae Smith with a left hook in the 1st round. After Michael Johnson fell out of the 2nd fight, he fought Luis Pena. Once again, Khama was the underdog. And in all honesty, for the majority of the fight, Pena made him look like the underdog. Pena had a huge grappling advantage, controlled the fight, was winning up until round 3. Khama had some great head movement. And, although Pena got that grappling going early on, Khama was sprawling them takedowns in the 3rd. As Luis attempted a single leg, he turned his hip, allowing Khama to get a grip on the guillotine. Well, sorry, it's not actually a traditional guillotine. It was a modified guillotine. And that was it. It was lights out for Luis Pena. Then he got submitted quick. Now, Khama doesn't have the greatest chin, but catching his chin has been the problem for some fighters other than Ottman Azaitar. Funnily enough, in his first UFC fight as a favourite, he gets KO'd relentless 2-3s, and it was just a barrage he couldn't handle. Mm-hmm. That previous fight against Azaitar, I don't know about this guy, because he's sneaking potatoes in, steroids, and he's been caught for popping before. So, I'm not sure if he's got that added help, and that's why he's so violent in that cage, or if that really is what Azaitar is about. But in this fight, we've got a striker versus grappler matchup. It's hard to put faith in Mullarkey due to his inconsistency. And, supposedly his strong point is the wrestling. But we're watching Khama. Khama sprawled a considerable amount of takedowns during his UFC stint. And although he did suffer to Pena's grappling, I can just see him piecing Mullarkey up at some point over Mullarkey dominating this through his grappling. The higher level of competition certainly favours Khama. Is for all the high level competition outside the UFC and Quarantillo, even Paul Fowler. But I can see a split decision, and that's a problem. Worthy has got that KO power. I think Mullarkey could take the 1st round. And, I just see Mullarkey continuously shooting. And I think that could even cost him again with a another modified guillotine from Khama. You see, Khama's got them dangerous tools that can end this fight, whereas Mullarkey is going to be looked to giving it a Khabib smash type style, but he just doesn't. He's just not polished enough in that area. So I'm gonna go with Khama Worthy for the win. Will I be betting it? Probably not, because I see a split decision in this one, and it's going to be a tight one, and you can never trust those judges, can
you? All right. Well, how about you, Matt? Do you agree with Dave, or do you have a different pick for this fight?
This fight is a huge toss-up for me, and it comes down to their last fights. Like, Mullarkey is 0-2 in the UFC, and now he's fighting on the main card of a pay-per-view in Vegas with the spotlight on him. His wins have, prior to that, he had 4 stoppage wins on the regional circuit. That's great, but that's a transition to the UFC that I don't know if he's able to make just yet. I get why this fight is on the main card, but he also has a loss on his record to Alexander Volkanovski from when they were both on the Australian scene. So stepping up to a level of competition for him has been a bit of a challenge. While Worthy, got wins over Luis Pena, as Dave said, he's gotten Devontae Smith in his UFC debut, got him out in the first round. I think it's all about the first 3 minutes. If Worthy's able to pressure Mullarkey and make sure that he's the one that's aggressive in that smaller cage, he's got more submissions. He doesn't have as many knockouts, but when it gets deeper into the fight, that's Worthy's game. So if he's able to assert the pressure in the first 3 minutes, he's either going to end it. But I would take the over here, but it's all going to be about that first 3 minutes. I would go with Khama Worthy, and I think I'm going to go with the decision here.
All right. And I look at the over 1.5 right now. Currently at BetOnline, it's -175. And again, if you guys want to take them straight up, Khama Worthy is -122, and Jamie Mullarkey is +102. Matt, you brought up Alexander Volkanovski, and you kind of triggered me. Because we were supposed to see him on this card, and we're not with Brian Ortega. So thank you for triggering me. But okay, let's move on. It's okay, I forgive you. Let's move on to the next fight. Oh, this is going to be a good one. We have Bantamweight Sean O'Malley versus Tom Almeida. Via BetOnline, Sean O'Malley is -320 and Thomas Almeida is +270. Matt, I'll continue with you for your breakdown and pick for this fight.
This is what we would like to call in the business a trap fight. That's the word of the day. Trap fight. Not trap music, but a trap fight. Because if you look at these fights on paper, Sean O'Malley only 1 loss in his career. Almeida has lost 4 of his last 5, 3 of them in a row to Jonathan Martinez, Rob Font, Jimmy Martinez, and a previous loss to Cody Garbrandt. So when you look at that, it's kind of like watching Hulk Hogan on Superstars in 1988, and he's facing off against the Brooklyn Brawler. You really don't have a lot of hope for the Brawler here. But before that, Almeida had a 21-fight win streak, including his first 4 UFC fights. He's knocked out 17 other human beings. It's all about, for me, the mindset of Sean O'Malley. Has he come to the realization that he has to fight smarter? And also the injury bug. He got hurt in his last fight against Marlon Vera in August. Before that, he got that, his star-making fight, his star-making win against Andrei Silkamev. And he got hurt in that fight. He was out for almost a year and a half, 2 years. So it's all about if Sean O'Malley is healthy, this is a short night at the office for Sugar Sean. But if he still hasn't answered those questions, it goes back to, Darren Till, someone who who Dave knows better than I could. Mental health, your focus, your determination, your drive, whether or not you're locked in, because, before that last fight, everything was about Sean O'Malley, the brand. And not Sean O'Malley, the fighter. And I like Sean O'Malley. People like Sean O'Malley do good business for me because I get paid to talk about them because all they do is talk smack. That is my wheelhouse. That is what I do for a living. So good for me. But if he can't back it up in the octagon because of whatever's going on in his head, if he's not focused on the actual fight and his mindset isn't there, it ain't going to be good. I'm going with Sean O'Malley. I think he gets his 4th decision win. This one's going to go the distance, but watch out for Almeida. It goes back. I think this one, round 1, is going to be a huge deciding factor. If O'Malley gets through that first round, then he does it convincingly. It's a decision victory for O'Malley.
Yeah, just like how you brought up with his ankle, he's had, in the past, he's had issues with this same ankle. So that is what's worrying me the most. Is his ankle going to be okay? Is it going to affect his game? Because he's been talking a lot. So this is either he redeems himself on Saturday night from his fight against Marlon Vera, or Thomas Almeida. Like, this is a tough one for me. I like Sean O'Malley in this one, but Dave, I want to hear what you have to say. Will Sean O'Malley redeem himself this Saturday night, or do you like Thomas Almeida?
The Sugar Show returns, and he's fighting a guy in Thomas Almeida, 6 years in the UFC, Brazilian Muay Thai striking specialist. And when talking about that ankle and that leg, when you're a Muay Thai fighter, you're really good at kicking. So I can only assume that Almeida is going to be looking for that. And you know what? He usually gives fight fans what they want, a kickboxing brawl until somebody drops. And, you know, he does have a BJJ Brown bout, but 17 career wins by knockout really gives you all the information that you need to know regarding his preferred style, right? So his last win in the UFC came in 2016 against Albert Morales, who just wasn't UFC caliber and was soon released after a horrid losing streak. So in reality, Almeida hasn't had a significant win since 2015 versus Anthony Burchak. Now, his most recent fights against Rob Font and Jonathan Martinez, interestingly, he came in as the favorite to then lose both of them fights back to back. Rob Font's striking, it really did shine. Not many people were expecting Rob Font to pop out of nowhere and become some striking beast, but he did. And Almeida, you know, even returned to Thailand for that fight in attempts to reset himself. But it was Font's jab dictating that fight early on. Almeida didn't look bad. He didn't look bad at all. And you know what? He'd actually landed more strikes by the end of the first round. But I think that just came from the leg kicks that he'd utilised. Round 2 against Rob Font, I think the aggression paid off. A flurry of strikes started with a right hook to a high kick, ending in a combination of repeated right uppercuts, hammer fists, lights out for Almeida. He has been chinny. If you go back through his career, he doesn't have a solid chin. He does get knocked out. And then he moved up to featherweight. I don't know why, to fight Martinez. And look, it wasn't the worst fight for Almeida, but it just seems like he's lost some of that early spark, and perhaps like the 2-year layoff has affected him more than we realise. And I just worry that, you know, another loss, it could be his last, and he could be on his way out to another promotion. He's fighting a guy, you know, the highlight reel kid. Well, that's my preferred nickname anyway for Sean O'Malley. It's one of the reasons the UFC came calling so early on in his pro career. He was age 22. Why did they come calling? Because he's impressive and he's fun to watch. We've watched him grow in the UFC from a boy to a man since that Dana White Contender Series showing, looking like Chase Hooper's brother, and like Ben Askren had a wild summer in Montana or something. He soon changed that look. He grew a beard, got some plaits done, and he came back after that long layoff, and he really did start to impress. Now, although inexperienced and very green, his fists have always been a problem for anybody he's facing. Hands by his side, no regard for keeping his hands up, walk-off KOs that you just do not expect. And the walk-off KO that he did on Dana White Contender Series, if anybody has Fight Pass, go watch that. Not only for Snoop Dogg and Uriah Faber's entertaining commentary, but for just how slick this kid looks. Now, we'll fast forward. He's 25 years old. He's got the tattoo. He's got the beard. Skill set's refined. You know, I think he's one of the luckiest fighters. I really do, to have a guy in Tim Welch, who's his best friend and one of his main coaches. You know, close relationships like that, especially for Sugar. You can see that it's been a decent assistance for him in his career. So then now he's facing a guy in Jose Quinones after a long, pointless suspension, you know, which I won't go into. USADA needs to fix up. 2 years for that is just, it's pathetic. And, you know, this now, Jose Quinones, this is where that hype train really began to start moving. Amazing footwork, his distant management with that karate style. It's just beautiful to watch. And with his head movements on point so much, he can just leave his hands at his side. Now, Quinones is known as a pressure fighter. Now, this is it was the worst game plan for him. Eventually suffering from that counter right hand head kick and then uppercut, ground and pound. The deal was sealed. He then went on to fight the veteran in Eddie Wineland. Now, this was, you know, the return of the walk-off KO. Most fighters can't manage one walk-off KO. I mean, this kid is making it trend in the bantamweight division. Why is he so good at this? It is his feints. He's a true master of feints and switching stances. And these are two key attributes that elite strikers possess. Feint uppercut, so fast, so small, but gave Eddie Wineland the wrong reaction, and that right cross followed straight after, and our boy was just walking off again with that one pop. And they are the best KOs. I don't care what you say, because there's no follow-up strikes. You know that fighter's just took that knockout and that's it. And you know, it's not only is it good for health and safety reasons, but it's, you know, good for the eye too. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so we knew at this point he defeated Eddie Wineland. We knew he was going to get a tough fight, right? So in steps Chito Vera. This is the glitch in O'Malley's run. We saw a confident, experienced Marlon Vera land one of the most precise low kicks that you will see, hitting the perennial nerve, which is on the outside of the fibula bone, right at the top of your calf. And it's so small that the fact that he hit it is just... it was unlucky, because as soon as he hit it, and it's hard to notice, as soon as he hit it, O'Malley's leg was done, and we just know that he's had problems with that before, and he was falling all over the place. It looked like he was rolling his ankle at the same time too. It's quite an exposed area for an outside leg kick, but as I said, it's such a small surface area that we rarely see this type of kick connect so well. O'Malley lost the use of his leg. But he hit it very well, because you go back to that fight, it's from about the 250 mark, you'll see Vera connect with this kick. Now, it didn't really seem to do much damage, but you'll notice straight after that kick of the 250 mark, that's when O'Malley's leg kept giving out. Vera was a lot more patient than O'Malley's prior opponent, and I think that was key to beating such a talented counter striker. And then he began to attack the legs. The stoppage was very quick. But I think it was nothing to do with the elbow and the ground and pound on the floor. Herb Dean stopped that fight due to the leg. He really did. He could see that O'Malley was wincing in pain. And yeah, so O'Malley dropped out of the top 15, is now ranked 17th. And in all honesty, I think he's going to get himself back into the top contenders spot, really. O'Malley's technical and all-round MMA abilities, they really are something to behold. And yes, you know, you've got to worry about injuries in the legs. He's just such a, you know, a sizable character for the bantamweight division. He's struck his way through the entire bantamweight roster since that debut on Dana White Contender Series, and I expect this trend to continue. Both of these men, don't get me wrong, are excellent strikers, but we need to note that, you know, O'Malley's grappling skills are being trained to some of the highest level. He competed against world-renowned grappling expert and actually former UFC title challenger Gilbert Melendez to a draw. Now, he didn't win, but a draw against a grappler in Gilbert Melendez's caliber is something to take note of. It's just proof that this kid is more than a fancy hairdo and a confident mouth. It really is. Now, Almeida's no slouch, but I anticipate, you know, the speed, accuracy, and the power of O'Malley to reign supreme this Saturday night. And to be fair, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw another walk-off knockout, because his reactions and his hands are so fast that it is hard to keep up for a lot of guys. So yeah, I'm backing Sean O'Malley, and due to these disgusting odds, I think we just have to take this one inside the distance, because I think he is going to get the job done. As I mentioned before, Almeida is chinny. So yeah, for me, it's Sugar Sean inside the distance or by KO, whichever you fancy.
Yeah, I was actually looking at Sean O'Malley inside the distance earlier today, and let me see if I can pull it up. But from what I can remember, is minus 115. I'm pulling it up right now. And yeah, Sean O'Malley inside the distance to win is minus 115. To go to the decision is plus 155. So, yeah. But if we go into the chat, this comment stood out to me the most. And just very briefly, Magdalene Sports says Almeida is the hardest hitter O'Malley has ever faced. So, Dave, do you think that is true? And do you think that'll affect Sean O'Malley at all? Because I know you're backing Sean O'Malley, but...
Do you know what? I mean, it's tough. Because Thomas Almeida, a lot of his knockouts, they have not came against like the greatest competition. As I mentioned, Albert Morales, like that was his last knockout, and that guy continued to get finished by everyone and was kicked out of the UFC. What the problem with Almeida is when he faces someone who is as good in that striking area, like Cody Garbrandt, for example, he seems to get flattened. And then, Rob Font, he got flattened. He thought there was a problem with his weight, so he thought he could transition, the power that he has up to the division above, and it didn't work out because Jonathan Martinez beat him in a decision. I just think that a lot of his knockouts they're not that desirable. I know he's had a knockout like Brad Pickett was at the end of his career, and a lot of his knockouts came against lower level guys. He fought in Legacy FC. I think he was a champion there as well, bantamweight champion. But these guys that he were beating, like, their records were poor. They were really poor. If I could get them up now, I'd tell you, but they were really poor records. He was knocking out bums, basically. So it's easy to do that on the regionals, but as soon as you step up to the UFC, that changes because you're just mixed amongst the elite of this sport. So, because Almeida hasn't shown me that power of recent, and it's been so long, and he's had layoffs in between, he had an eye injury. I'm not even sure how healthy his eye is at this point. So, yeah. I'm not saying that he doesn't have power. He definitely does. Most people do have decent power in the UFC. Otherwise, they wouldn't be fighters. But it's connecting with O'Malley. To be fair, if Almeida wants to win this, he's probably going to go for the leg. I mean, leg kicks. Put that power into them leg kicks. But the problem with doing that is you're leaving yourself open. And Sean O'Malley is so good at countering that when you're dropping that leg kick, you're leaving that chin out there. So, it's tough to plan against Sean O'Malley. It really is. And Almeida isn't no Marlon Vera. He hasn't got the fight IQ of Marlon Vera at all. So, I'm going to still be sticking with Sean O'Malley and not worrying about that power too much, I don't think.
All right, beautiful. Well, if you guys do want to get in on this fight again via BetOnline, Sean O'Malley is -320 and Thomas Almeida is +270. Let's move on to the next fight. We have welterweight Tyron Woodley versus Vicente Luque via BetOnline. This is going to be a great fight too. I know I say that for every fight, but this is going to be a great fight. Anyway, via BetOnline, Vicente Luque is -250 and Tyron Woodley is +210. Matt, I'm actually going to go to you for your breakdown and pick for this next fight.
Have you ever seen a one-trick pony in the field so happy and free? If you ever seen a one-trick pony, you've seen Woodley. 3 straight decision losses to Colby Covington, Gilbert Burns, and Kamaru Usman. And of course, Tyron Woodley could murder me just by looking at me. I would Andy Kaufman myself, change my name, become a gas station attendant. No one would ever see me again. You don't even know my real name. I'm going to Robert California this mother. But for Tyron Woodley, man, we talked about it on this show before. Great fighter, great former champion. And he's going up against a guy with 2 straight stoppage wins in Luque against Randy Brown in August and Nico Price back in May of last year. The only real upside is that Luque lost to common opponent Stephen Thompson while Woodley just had a draw with him in a 5-round fight for the UFC welterweight title. So those 2 extra rounds, who knows what that could have done. But before that, he had a 6-fight winning streak with a split decision over renowned crazy person Mike Perry. Luque knocked out 11, submitted 6, 2 decision wins. He's got as many fights, just one more fight actually, than Woodley. That doesn't matter. It's just a fun fact that you guys should know. But when it goes to the ground here, it could be Woodley's game. If Woodley's able to utilize his wrestling, he's utilized his takedowns, he's never been submitted, Tyron Woodley, but he's submitted 5 human beings. Luque has been submitted twice. Every other time he's lost at going to the distance. It's all about the mindset of Tyron Woodley. The mind might be there, but the body's probably going to fail. I see this as an early night. I see Luque getting his 12th knockout, and this most likely being Tyron Woodley's last fight in the UFC.
Yeah, this one was a tough one for me. It's hard to fade Vicente Luque, in my opinion. He has knockout power, through the roof, this man. But Dave, I want to hear what you have to say for this fight. I'm very curious to hear.
Yeah, do you know what? This is an extremely tough fight to break down. And what are the odds right now? Because last time I looked, I was looking at Woodley at +200, which is insanity to me.
Yeah, he's +210 right now.
Yeah, you see, now, if I was looking at Vicente Luque -120, maybe even maybe as far as minus 150. But come on, like these odds, they're not matching up with this or whatsoever. You got Muay Thai and BJJ versus wrestling in BJJ, NCAA Division 1 champion in Woodley. He's getting overlooked here. And yes, I know he's 38, he's aging. Everyone keeps talking about it on Twitter and on socials. But is anyone really taking notice of who he's lost to? He's lost to the current champion, the previous title challenger, and then the previous title challenger in Colby. So it's a 3-fight losing streak against Usman, Burns, and Colby, who are the best 3 in the division. And apparently, Tyron Woodley has shot it. Maybe, because you know what? When we do look at them fights, he's got some hesitancy going on. And Woodley had that bomb in that right hand. He could drop people with that right hand. He's put on some of the most classic fights in this division, but that has just seemed to have disappeared. And I'm not sure if that is, strictly based on the opposition that he's faced, or if he is actually declining. And I can't make that decision right now. And too many people are going against Woodley, and I don't feel safe in this position. I would not feel safe back in Vicente Luque. Now, Luque, yeah, he's damn good, and he trains at Sanford MMA, which is highly convenient considering 2 out of 3 of Woodley's previous losses came against this gym. And I know that he's good friends with Burns, and Burns was the guy that put a striking masterclass on Woodley. But the level of competition, I'm sorry, it's been weak. I'm sorry. And whenever Luque gets the step up, whenever he's had a step up, Leon Edwards lost, Wonderboy Thompson lost. He loses. Like Nico Price is not he's not the guy. I'm sorry. Randy Brown, I do respect Randy Brown a bit more. I do think he's got the talent, but he's not the guy either. And to be fair, we need to give Woodley some respect. I don't think the guy's lost a 3-round fight since probably Jake Shields, which was a lifetime ago. This guy fights 5 rounds all the time. I mean, fair play, he's getting that main event money too, but look, this is something we need to take into consideration. We haven't saw him in a small cage, and I believe this favors him at a ridiculous price of plus 200. It doesn't make sense to bet any other way right now. If he loses to Luque, I'm going to accept that judgment, but on Woodley's skill and his age, and that he should, probably move on to something else or a different promotion. But right now, he hasn't lost to anyone at the level of Luque's level. I don't want to see Woodley backing up. If he does, Luque is going to make mincemeat of him. I want to see wrestling and nothing else from Woodley. I want to see him go back to that Division 1 and be spamming takedowns, make this a boring fight, or better yet, get the takedown and ground and pound the crap out of Vicente Luque. And that's exactly what I can see happening. So I'm not betting this fight. I might actually put half a unit on Woodley just because of the disrespect on the odds. This is the former champ we're talking about, and yeah, he's got the 3 losses, but 3 losses against arguably and probably the 3 best in the division, the entire division. So how are we going to put that and hold that against Woodley? I like what's coming out of his mouth too in the media. He knows he's doing bad, and I quote me if I'm wrong, but he said something along the lines of, I'm sick of losing, I'm tired of this. Like, an angry fighter it can be a dangerous fighter. And I think that Woodley, he's not stupid. And I think he knows where Vincente's strengths are. And I think he knows that he's got a strong wrestling game. So it's Woodley for me. If you're going to bet this fight, I mean, Woodley, hesitant. I wouldn't start splashing units everywhere, but at those odds, sorry, Luque, I can't back you this weekend. Not at those odds. Terrible. But I feel like that through Woodley's boring fights that he's had, Luque is not going to allow such a boring fight, certainly on the feet. But yeah, this would be a good one. And co-main event, I don't think it's really co-main event worthy, but with the switch arounds, it is what it is. Tyron Woodley for the W for me. I think it's a dog weekend, and Woodley's gonna get it done.
Yeah, well, in the chat, I see a lot of Woodley's shot. He's old. He's done this and that. But we do have a question from Magwin Sports. He said, Woodley fight, he has to finish or lose. Thoughts on Woodley winning the distance at plus 600? If you can answer that.
I mean, yeah, because he can wrestle this, and you know, he can wrestle and make it a boring one. He can make it a boring one. He can keep Luque on that floor if the ground and pound doesn't pull through. It can just be a case of, you know, your classic wrestler just dominating position and holding position, and that's highly probable when it comes to Woodley and his style and where his strengths are. So plus 600 for Woodley by decision in a 3-round fight. Now bear this in mind, Woodley has not. I don't know the last time he had a 3-round fight. This guy has been fighting for 25 minutes for the longest time against, you know, Robbie Lawler, Stephen Thompson, Damian Maia, Darren Till, Usman, Burns, Covington. Like, I know his age and I know, but that's also a lot of damn experience against the best fighters. Luque has not fought these guys, not even close to these guys, only in the gym. And I don't know how well he fares in the gym. And to be fair, I know he's close friends with Burns. Burns might have the tips for him, might be texting him saying, oh, you need to do that, you need to do this, and teaching him what to do. But it's a whole different ball game when you step in that cage, and it's a lot easier said than done. So yeah, it's the odds for me on this one. The odds got me, and you know, the fact that people are bashing Woodley over losing to the best that there is in the division. I'm not on side with the majority of people. I think taking the dog here, a cheeky half unit would be the play, if anything, or just stay off and enjoy it, because them Luque odds are disgusting. And you watch now Luque come out and knock him out in round 1. And if that is the case, then everyone's correct. But how can people judge that? How can people make that judgment right now coming off a loss to Usman, Burns and Covington? It don't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me. So yeah, and look, and he's losing these fights, but he's losing by decision. And obviously the rib shot by Covington, whatever. But you know, Burns and Usman, like, it's going the distance. They're not putting Woodley out, and this is a 3-round fight. He doesn't have to go 25 minutes. He doesn't want to worry about that. So maybe he's been hesitant in these fights in saving his gas tank. Maybe he's worried about his cardio. Mm-hmm. Maybe the 38-year-old is going to come out now and do his thing in 15 minutes against a guy that just hasn't fought the level of opposition that he has. But yeah, I'm not trying to convince you guys off your play, but for me personally, it's a dog or pass situation.
Yep. Well, I love the dog odds, honestly. But again, if you guys do want to get in on this fight, again, via BetOnline, Vicente Luque is minus 250 and Tyron Woodley is plus 210. Again, you can always check out the MMA props. There's a lot of value in there. Okay, so do your shopping, do your research. The value lies in there. Anyway, let's move on to the main event. And I was telling Matt about this before we went live, and I am so drawn between the two because I love them both so much, and they're both amazing. But heavyweight, Stipe Miocic versus Francis Ngannou via BetOnline. Francis Ngannou is minus 130, and Stipe is plus 110. Matt, I'll begin with you for your breakdown and pick for the main event.
Okay, so this is a toughie. This is a very tough fight for me because this is not the same fight, both of these guys, and these are not the same fighters that walked into the ring in 2018. Yeah. The difference that 3 years makes is big. Stipe Miocic is a different fighter. He's an older fighter, and he's probably as locked in as he'll ever be. But is that confidence there? Because those wins over Cormier, I will say they're toss-ups. You can rail on me in the chat. You can flame me. You can call me an idiot. But I think those fights were a lot closer than Stipe Miocic would have liked. And I think the second fight, you know, could have tipped the scales a different way, in just my opinion. But Miocic, in that, you know, since his first reign, he defeated JDS, Overeem, and Verdum, beat Ngannou in an impressive display, just clowned Ngannou in 2018, and Ngannou was in a funk. After that, he had the worst UFC heavyweight fight since, since the 1990s or early 2000s against Derek Lewis. Like that, we can all recognize that as historically and empirically the worst heavyweight fight in modern UFC history. But since that time, he's knocked out Jairzinho Rozenstruik, JDS, Cain Velasquez, and Curtis Blades, all before the end of round 1. that is a human damaging machine. And this is the best Francis Ngannou we've ever seen. There's no real hype train. The fight is pretty much focused on both fighters. Stipe's probably going to complain that he still doesn't get the respect he deserves because he does things like that. It's also just Cleveland. You know, people still rag on LeBron James, and he's the greatest basketball player of all time outside of Michael Jordan, and people still try to clown him. And I think it's a little bit of that Ohio bias. It's a little bit of that American Splendor Harvey Picar vibe, that chip on his shoulder that will never, ever go away for Stipe Miocic. No matter how much he's heralded during and after his career, he's always going to have that chip on his shoulder because he wasn't given the same respect during his title reigns that a John Jones, a Conor McGregor, you know, a GSP, someone who was elite in their division. But yet again, taking a look at who Stipe beat, JDS on the decline. Overeem is Overeem. I'm never going to talk smack about Overeem. And Verdum, you know, that was nearing post-peak Verdum. So for me, Ngannou's faster, he's hitting harder than he's ever hit before, and he's fighting smarter than he's ever fought before. Well, if this goes to the ground, it is a toss-up. Both of these guys have never gotten a submission victory before, but Ngannou's been tapped. But this ain't going to go to the ground. We're going to see ourselves a boxing match. We're going to see a kickboxing match on Saturday, and I think we're going to get a new UFC heavyweight champion. I think if Ngannou just gets on the gas pedal, does not backstep, does not have that lack of confidence he did in the first fight, we're going to have a brand new heavyweight champion. And a lot of people are going to be looking at the UFC heavyweight division and mad that they're not getting Miocic and John Jones. But a lot of people are going to start putting money down on a John Jones and Ngannou fight later in 2021.
See, now, this is where I'm drawn, because their first fight in 2018, Stipe was utilizing his wrestling skills, and that's how he beat Ngannou. And plus, Ngannou has been training with Kamaru Usman, so does that mean he's been working on his wrestling skills? And also, he doesn't have as good as cardio as Stipe. So that's like another thing that stands out to me. That's why I'm like sort of leaning Stipe to win by decision. But also Ngannou, he can get that first round knockout or knockout at any point. So that's where I'm drawn. And maybe Dave can help me with that one. So Dave, let's hear your breakdown and pick for the main event.
Yeah, this is a horrible fight to pick. Two lovely dudes. Who wants to pick against either of these? Who wants either of these guys to lose? I mean, Stipe Miocic has kind of done it all, really, hasn't he? I mean, apart from that, you know, the John Jones super fight, like, well, not super fight because John Jones moved up, but the John Jones fight, I mean, what is really left? There's not all that much left. He's kind of got that GOAT status amongst MMA fans and critics already. But, you know, a second victory over the most feared heavyweight probably in the UFC history, that would definitely, you know, solidify that place amongst the elite forever. Now, we've got Ngannou who owns knockout power like no one we have ever saw, maybe other than Derek Lewis. He's decimated like the most recognizable names in the current heavyweight division. And, you know, a lot of them in the first round. And when we think about it, his 4-fight win streak that he's on, that doesn't even accumulate to the length of one full round. So it just goes to show how fast and how quick he can get this done. Now, there's a few things we can pick up on for this second fight. You know, what has he changed? For one, he's lighter. Francis Ngannou is lighter. I saw that he was 17 pounds heavier in the first fight than he is for this fight. So, you know, this weight, it's going to be dependent on whether, you know, Miocic is going to use double or single legs. And Ngannou is not the guy that you can shoot doubles on because he's so big, he's so heavy. And that's why the single leg was so important for Stipe in that first fight. Stipe instantly shot the single leg. Ngannou managed to get back to his feet. Stipe remained calm. He remained patient. He weathered that storm in the first round, and he made Ngannou miss the majority of his shots. Now, he landed some good shots of his own too. He was landing teep kicks, leg kicks, great counter strikes, and he was timing the takedowns perfect off of Ngannou's missed strikes because he's so wild and not really the most technical of strikers. Now, he did catch Stipe in the first round with one uppercut, and, you know, if you were betting on Stipe, you would have sighed, you would have took a breath, you would have gasped, you would have gone, oh my God. But, you know, Stipe's chin held up. For some reasons, it looks as though Stefan Struve is got more power in his hands than Francis Ngannou, because he dropped Stipe with ease, but Ngannou not so much. And then we go to round 2 of their first fight. Complete adrenaline dump, lactic acid built up. Ngannou looked like he'd fought for 15 minutes, not 5. So since the years gone by since this last fight, if he hasn't worked on his cardio, he should have been working on his cardio and his takedown defense and nothing else. Maybe sharpening up, the technical skills of his striking. But really, if Ngannou possessed a takedown defense and, cardio, who is going to beat that guy? Nobody is going to beat him, because his power is so destructive. Stipe was way more conditioned for that first fight, and he made Francis hold his weight for the majority of round 2. Round 3, same again. And then after round 4, Ngannou could barely stand. But then surprisingly, it's like he caught second wind in round 5, because his takedown defense held up in round 5. But we can also boil that down to Stipe being extremely exhausted too. Let's not forget, it's all well and good saying, oh yeah, Ngannou's having his gas tank drained by Stipe's grappling, but Stipe is grappling Ngannou here, so that must be tiring in itself. And it's just, it is a tough fight to predict, just because we don't know where Ngannou's at. The guy comes out, and look at the Rosenstruck fight, for example. That is some of the worst technical striking I've ever seen. And I have to say this, that is not what you get taught. Yeah, that is a guy coming out and just throwing what he knows he has and hoping that it lands. And Rosenstruck kind of crumbled and he got caught. But I feel like you come out and do that against Stipe, he's going to take a leg. He's going to take your single leg like he did in the first fight, and he's going to take you down. And that will be Ngannou's worst mistake. And, he has been training with Usman. He's obviously made good friends with Usman. But for one, Usman's a welterweight. And for two, you can't pick up lifelong wrestling experience in a couple years, 5 years. You can't do that. We're talking about guys who have been wrestling for 10, 20 years at the highest level. You can teach a guy so much, but you cannot teach muscle memory. You cannot teach that. That comes over years of experience. It's tough, it really is. I'll have to laugh at John Anik as well. He sends out a tweet talking about the sharps are on Stipe Miocic. Like, what is sharp about Stipe Miocic being an underdog? He won the first fight. Picking Stipe Miocic, that's not sharp. There is no sharp betting in MMA. You cannot be a sharp better in MMA. It does not exist in this sport. Just look at how many underdogs have been cashing in and how many shock fights have happened this year alone. It doesn't exist in this sport. It's power versus technique here. And the challenger, Ngannou, he was outclassed by the experience and toughness of the reigning champion, Stipe Miocic. Can we expect the same outcome? The bookmakers do not seem to think so. Can you blame them? Probably not. Offering the champion an underdog price, some see this as, the way they're seeing this as absolute value. But once you play Ngannou's highlight reel, that choice does not seem as desirable. So for me, instead of flipping a coin on whether Ngannou's going to connect with Miocic's chin, you can actually take a deeper look into this and you can play both sides of the board. It's not so much a guaranteed bet, but right now you can take Stipe Miocic by decision for plus 450, and you can take Francis Ngannou by knockout for plus 100. You can put 2 units on Ngannou, you can put 1 unit on Stipe, and they're the most likely outcomes for me. I do not think Ngannou can win a decision at all, ever in his career. And I do not think that Stipe can put out Ngannou. I think it's more likely that Stipe could put out Ngannou, but the guy's so tough. He's just built he's just a monster. So yeah, I'm gonna play both sides and hope that my theory is correct, that Stipe will win by decision or Ngannou's going to win by KO, and then I don't have to worry as much about Ngannou ruining my dreams. Because, originally I was going to take Stipe because we've seen this fight, and I haven't seen Ngannou in the gym. We get given clips, we get handed the smallest bit of information. Secrets remain within that gym. There's things that we will never know unless you are an insider of that gym, and fighters are tight, gyms are tight. That's why this sort of leaked information rarely gets out. Yeah, so for me, I might be playing both sides.
So a few things for me. A little fun fact. So when Stipe fought Ngannou the first time, he was the underdog and won. And then when he fought DC the most recent 2 fights, he was an underdog and had a pick'em, and he won those 2. So he has this trend of winning as an underdog. That's what stands out to me the most. And then also the fact that Francis Ngannou could not knock him out back in 2018. But yeah, that was back in 2018. But still, he could not knock him out. So that's why I'm leaning Stipe a little bit. I like the value on Stipe, even though you're saying, like, again, I like Stipe. End of story. As much as I love Francis Ngannou, he's a tough guy that doesn't quit. That's another reason why I'm so drawn. He does not quit, and he works hard. But just looking at this, I like Stipe. I'll just leave it at that. I like Stipe. So, yeah, that's all we have for the main card breakdown. So let's go dabble into some prelims real quick. And, Matt, I'll begin with you. Do you have a top prelim fight that you're looking out for or a lock on the card?
Well, let's take a look at the card really quick. In terms of a lock, I'm going to go with Vicente Luque. Vicente Luque will be my lock for the night. I'm going to probably get flamed next week for that, but I really don't care. In terms of the prelim to watch out for, the prelim card seems to be shifting around, so it is really hard to tell you which prelim you should watch or which ones you should be looking at, because at this point we're going full-blown whose line is it anyway, because the points are being made up and these fights going anywhere. I would just watch out for Abubakar Nurmagomedov. Anytime you see a Nurmagomedov on the card, you're going to want to watch it.
Yeah, that's true. Very true. And plus, there are so many changes to this card. Just today alone, there was 2 changes to it. So, again, stay tuned to our social media pages and our picks page if you want any updates regarding this. But, Dave, what is your preliminary card pick that you're looking out for, or fight that you're looking out for, and also a lock on the card?
Yeah, there's a few sleepers. There really is. I love the William Knight, Alonzo Menafield scrap.
No, William Knight is out.
Oh, they're out? That's out?
Yeah. So it's Alonzo Menafield versus Fabio Chiran. No more William Knight.
Well, I mean, what's the odds on Menafield? Have we got odds for him yet?
Yeah, Alonzo Menafield is juiced at -250 and Fabio's +210.
Oh, I could see that coming from a mile off at Menafield. A nice addition to your parlay there. As Matt said, Nurmagomedov, he's gonna beat Jared Gordon. Jared Gordon hasn't shown me much in this division. But I tell you, the fight, this could be sleeper fight of the night if this goes how I think it's gonna go. And it was originally cancelled. Shane Young versus Omar Morales. Two guys that like to kickbox, and this will be a kickbox. I don't think we'll see much grappling here. This is going to be a kickboxing war. I've been a fan of Omar Morales. He lost his previous fight to, I can't remember, but I remember picking him, and I remember being hurt that he lost. Giga Chikadze lost to him by unanimous decision, but prior to that, he was just impressive. He was really impressive, and I'd followed him from the Bellator to Dana White Contender Series straight into his UFC debut. I really do like Omar Morales' striking, but Shane Young is a tough dude too. He went the distance with Alexander Volkanovski, so that says it all. It's a great card, but there is no locks for me as of yet. I can't be giving out locks when there isn't really one. If anything, my lock is my little play on Miocic and Ngannou. I like how I've approached that fight, and I really don't see any other outcome than Stipe decision or Ngannou by KO. Oh, and actually, first fight of the night, our good friend Otman Azaitar, his bigger, older brother, Abu Azaitar, will be fighting Marc-Andre Barriault, and he's a bit of a beast too. And if he's been eating them potatoes, I wouldn't be surprised to see him knock out Marc-Andre Barriault, get that job done inside the distance, to be fair. He's a bigger boy than his brother as well. He's a middleweight, so I expect fireworks from that if Marc-Andre Barriault can't get some grappling initiated in that one.
Okay. Zaytar is actually the dog in this one at +109.
They think he's going to get grappled. Yeah, so that's not a bad dog play at all.
Yeah, not at all. Now let's just go move on to our chat questions real quick. And there was one that stood out to me. Danny, my guy. Hello, man. So best underdog on the card for the both of you. So I'll start with Dave.
Let me just grab the odds and I'll double check.
I feel like this card is very small too.
Wow, with the the cancellations, the movements, it's just now, it's just getting less and less. But this seems it's COVID, isn't it? That's what's been happening to us.
Yeah, it's all
dog.
COVID.
My favorite dog. I mean, Woodley. It's got to be Woodley for me. Okay. I don't just at them odds. It's just the odds really. I do think. Don't get me wrong. Luque should be favoured because Woodley is declining. He's older, and he hasn't been doing much in his fights. But I can't count him out losing to the three best in the division. So for me, a cheeky half unit on Woodley wouldn't be a bad play at all in my opinion.
Okay, what about you, Matt? Is there a best underdog on the card that you're looking at?
Even though I gave Luque the lock of the night, it's always going to be Tyron Woodley because you never want to give a champion an opportunity that, the former champions are always going to have opportunities. They're always going to know something a little bit more than the person they're fighting against because they've been in there just a little bit longer in terms of time inside the octagon. You always got to give a former champion a puncher's chance. So that's my favorite dog, even though I don't see it happening.
All right, beautiful. And then we have TJ Kill. He said, why didn't he knock him out last time? Meaning, why didn't Francis Ngannou knock out Stipe the last time they fought? And Dave, you can probably answer that for me.
Well, I've probably answered it already in my breakdown. It was basically just down to Stipe initiating the grappling, the single leg. It was all about the single leg for Stipe. He, like I said, he weathered the storm in that first round, and Ngannou came into that second round. He was depleted. He was done. The cardio was drained after the first round, and that's the problem you get with being so large, big, and explosive. He was headhunting, and he was missing shots. And I tell you now, when you're swinging and you don't connect, and you're doing that consistently, that is just tiring. Go into your garden and punch the air for 5 minutes, and tell me how tired you are after that. And then imagine being 6'5", 240 pounds. In front of a whole arena of people, bright lights down on you. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know it's different this time around, but we could see the exact same thing happen. This fight could literally play out exactly the same, or Franny can connect and get that job done. Hence why my plays are what they are.
Yeah. Now, there's another question with Danny, my guy. Over or under 1.5 rounds for the main event. And like how you just said, it can go either way, honestly. So I personally wouldn't touch the round totals, but I don't know what Dave or Matt has to say for that.
It's, it just, that all ties into what I've been saying. It's I can't really take that unless I'd be able to maybe see that. What's the under? See if the under's at like plus. If the under's in the plus money and then the
plus
over
115.
And then if you look at you could take both sides again. So you could take the under, and then do the over, or fight goes a distance. If the fight goes a distance is like good enough odds, you can play both sides, but they do have to be good enough odds. Like Stipe by decision is 450, so that's good enough for me to take that, and then Ngannou plus 100 at evens. Because you can take a profit no matter what. Obviously, you're going to lose one bet, but as long as you manage your bankroll and your unit stake is correct, you can get it done. So you can take a piece of the pie no matter what.
Yeah, and then let's move on. Remy says, remember to head Bob, Lee, and Dave to pretend you're paying attention. First of all, I am paying attention because not only are they giving you their knowledge to help you guys make your best bets, but they're helping me too. So you have to pay attention, okay? Not just bob my head, just bob my head. Anyway.
Hey, Remy. Hey, buddy. Guess what, sweetie yookums? I'm getting paid to do this. You're watching. So if you know better than I do, start a tweety and then start handicapping. See, I am here because I am funny and get some things right. You are watching me because you want to know what Dave and Lee are saying, and you get mad because I'm funnier than you. It's okay, sugar lumps. It's okay. I'm running on very little sleep. I got the COVID vaccine yesterday, and I feel like a boat hit me. So how about you find your head somewhere? I think it's up your ass. So you find that, then come back to me, and then we can have a conversation. Smooches.
Okay, anyway, Lil Cheesecake says, this is the last question. Lil Cheesecake says, who y'all got on the winner of this fight or John Jones? So winner of this fight versus John Jones, who would you have?
I think John Jones is just as, if not as good as Stipe at grappling. And if Francis wins, I could see John Jones single legging his way. But the difference with John Jones is he's got some vicious ground and pound. I actually think John Jones could put Ngannou out on the ground. When it comes to Stipe versus John Jones, that's probably one of the most favourable matchups that I would like to see. And I think that both men are so good in similar areas. And John Jones just has something about him. It's just not the young Johnny Bones Jones we used to see. So, and we haven't seen him at heavyweight. So it's a bit different. We saw Adesanya, we saw him change weight class, but it was different because he was a middleweight fighting at lightweight. Whereas Jones, he is actually moving to that weight class. So he's putting on the muscle mass. He's actually becoming a heavyweight. Whereas Israel, he was still a middleweight. He weren't putting the muscle mass on because he always knew that he was going to go back to middleweight if he won that fight. So there is a difference. And it will be interesting no matter what happens. But that's a prediction for the future. I'm not ready for that right now.
Yeah, that's going to be... I guess we'll see after this past weekend. I'll ask you next week after we see who the winner is for the main event this weekend. Yeah,
we'll do that one because we'll know by the weekend.
Yeah, so. Exactly. All right, so I'll keep that in mind. But anyway, that is all we have for our breakdown for UFC 260, Stipe Miocic versus Francis Ngannou. It's going to be a beautiful event. If you guys are not following the guys on Twitter, definitely give them a follow. You can follow Dave at @dmanion_ and Matt at mryan consulting. And then while you're at it, just give SBR a follow real quick at SBR Sports Picks. If you'd like to find more breakdowns and picks from all of SBR's UFC experts, including yours truly and Dave, just go to sbrpicks.com/UFC. I wish you all the best of luck this weekend. Again, there's going to be so many changes to this card, so stay tuned to our social media like always. Wish you all the best of luck, and I'll see you next week.